So I want to make a short. I want to cut a short. So I'll be marking. First of all, I'll mark 2.5 inches down. This is for my hemming or for folding. This is what I have. Alright, so now the next thing to do is to mark the full length of my shorts. So the full length I'm working with is 19 inches. I'll be removing 1 inch from the 19 inches for my band. So this is what I have. Now the next thing I'm going to mark is my hip line. So this is my waistline, minus 1 inch to 8 inches for my hip line, then minus 1 inch to 11 inches for my crotch depth. I'm going to mark a line across. So the next thing I'm going to mark now is my hip measurement. So I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 4 and add 1 inch to it. So I marked it here. My hip is 39. Sorry, my hip is 36 inches. Divided by 4 is giving me 9 inches plus extra 1 seam allowance. Also marked it on my waistline. And I'm going to connect this. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do now is my waist measurement. So my waist measurement is 28, which is 7. If you divide it by 4, we're having 7 inches plus 1 inch is 8 inches. I'll be adding extra 1 inch for that, which is 9 inches. Then I'll connect it to my hip line. So this is what I have. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my hip measurements into 4. So what do I, my hip measurement is 9 inches. I'm going to divide it by 4. Alright, so this is 9. That's the hip measurement I marked here. That's what I mean. I have 4.5 here. Then I have 2.25 inches. So I'm going to mark my 2.25 inch on my crotch line from the hip. Here I marked my hip measurement. I'm going to mark out whatever I have here. So I'm going to mark this. Alright. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my dart line from this point. This is my 1 inch. For seam allowance, I'm going to mark 4 inches for my dart. That is my bust panel. Then I'm going to come down by minus 1 inch to 4 inches. Remember, we removed 1 inch for our band. You can decide to make the depth of your dart to 4.5, but I'm working with 4 inches. So I'm going to mark 0.5 inch on both sides of the dart to create my dart leg. Alright, so this is what I have. Now the next thing is the short I'm making is not really a tight short. It's going to be a little bit free. So that's what I did to connect it. Alright, so this is what I have. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1 inch from this point, this particular point now away. Then I'm going to use my curved drill to connect it into my hip line. Into my hip line. So now the next thing is for my fly. Alright. Remember the zip is going to be in front. I mark 2 inches away here. Then I'm going to connect it here. So this is what I'm going to be having for my front. So I'm going to cut it out. So now what I'm going to do next is to fold this in. So another thing, because I was trying to fold it in and it was a little bit difficult. So what I did was to cut it in, so it to give me that ease to fold it in very well. So now I'm going to use this to cut out the back pattern. Alright, so I placed my paper, the front piece, on a new paper. Alright, so now I'm going to mark 2 inches at the crotch depth area. Here I'm going to mark 2 inches out. Alright, then I'm going to mark 2 inches on my hip line, which is here. Alright, now I'm going to divide. This is my front pattern. Sorry, I didn't do it earlier on. I'm going to divide this my measurements I have on the crotch line, these horizontal measurements, into 2. So I'm going to place this back. So this is what I have. I'm going to connect it back to my dart line. So it's just in a straight line. Alright, so this is half of it. This is what I have. So now I'm going to place my tape towards my crotch line this way. What I have there, I'm going to divide it into 2. So now what next I'm going to do is I'm going to divide these measurements I have here. So from here I'm going to place it back. So whatever I have 2 inches. So I'm going to mark my 2 inches from this cut line here. This is the center of what I have. Then from this cut line I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Alright. Sorry, here I'm going to go up by 2 inches here. Alright, so now I'm going to remove this front pattern, then connect it. From here I'm going to connect to my hip, to my crotch line. Sorry, I don't have a big curve. I'm just making do with what I have. Alright. So this is what the back is going to look like. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do is Alright, so now I'm going to measure what I have here on my waistline. I have 9 inches, so I'm going to mark my 9 inches from here. Now I'm going to add 1 inch back to my measurement, so 1 inch on the sides, the both sides of my shorts. Flip back, mark my 9 inches. It's going to be slanted. Sorry, this one is not slant enough, so that's why I decided to draw it. So that means this is going off. I'm going to connect it back. So this is what I'm going to be having. Don't tell me I made a mistake. Oh. So now the next thing I'm going to mark is the darts for my back pass. Alright, so I'm going to place this back here. This is my 4 inches for my dart. Then I'm going to take note of my 1 inch I removed to 4 inches. Then I'm going to mark half an inch for my dart intake. Then I'm going to connect it back. Then I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern. So this is our back, and the other one is for the front.